Okay, follow up on our damaged rotary table that we got from Grizzly. Um, Grizzly, you're not going to like me today, I'm afraid. So, anyway, a little bit of the history. Those of you that have watched me know that I've got several Grizzly machines in the shop. I'm relatively happy with the machines. I consider any machine, especially any new machine, to be basically a kit. You know, you've got a good base to start with, and you tend to know the machine better once you get it dialed in. It's a less expensive machine than some of the other stuff that I would probably prefer to have in the shop, but it's something that I usually make some modifications to anyway, and as opposed to a used American-made machine, why I feel they're usually a pretty good value, because usually you're at least starting out with tighter tolerances, and a new machinist is going to have a better chance of getting better results just because you're dealing with a little bit tighter machine, at least to start with. So when you start having to do little adjustments and things on that machine, why you maybe have run it a little bit and you've got a little better idea of what's going on. So anyway, I normally speak very highly of the Grizzly machines. You know, I started years and years ago with a G1007 mill drill that I've converted to CNC. We've seen quite a bit of material on that. I added the G0602 lathe that I just ran a couple of projects on, and then I converted it to CNC. When I purchased that lathe, my intent was to convert it to CNC. I've been exceptionally happy with that machine, and I've got a couple other machines. I've got one of their smaller dust collectors in the back. The surface plate that I've got here came from them. It's one that I picked up, and the latest one was the G0755. And I'm relatively happy with that machine. You know, it's not, I don't feel it's quite the quality that the earlier machines or the previous machines have had. Now, when I ordered that machine, I ordered one of the small 2-inch tilting compound vices. That little vise, I've run it a little bit now. I'm very happy with it. It's within its capabilities. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It seems to be fairly accurate. I'm really pleased with this. Now we come to this rotary table, and this was the T25937, and like I say, I did an unboxing video where UPS unboxed it for me, and I'll put a link to that up here in the description someplace, so if you haven't seen that, you can go back and watch that. But I got the new vise, or I got the new rotary table, and there's some issues. Mainly it is because it arrived in exactly the same condition as the first one did. The box was beat to shit, and the vise itself had dumped out on the ground, apparently, either fallen out, dumped out, something like that. Now, UPS, normally I have a pretty good relationship with my UPS drivers, and they tend to stay. Now, here over the last 6 months or a year, why we've had some fill-in drivers, and there's been some changes. When the damaged rotary table was picked up last Monday or Tuesday, I believe, I talked to the driver then, and if he was the one that delivered it, he wasn't fessing up to it, which I really don't blame him. I wasn't real happy. But I told him the situation, and I told him then that if the rotary table would have been put back in, it would have been taped up to where it was secure and everything, I probably would have accepted the package and said, you know, that's the chance you take when you get an import piece of equipment or machinery. When he came delivering this one yesterday afternoon, he came carrying it up, and I was watching for it. I'd watched tracking on it, and he said that he'd just gotten this route. So seems to be a real upfront guy. I've got no complaints with him so far. When I went out yesterday to meet him, why he greeted me by my first name and how you doing today and everything, and he said, you might want to look at this box, there's some damage there. Well, it was exactly what we saw before, except this end flap was folded down in. Now, along the way, it had been taped down this side and across the bottom. So that was the initial damage. Now, I wasn't real thrilled to start with because, and there's some caveats here to that too. This was shipped, both of these were shipped out of Missouri, out of the facility back there. So apparently they're not stocking them in Bellingham. Now, Bellingham's about 200 miles from me, and it probably would have survived the trip fine going that 200 miles. I watched tracking on this when it was shipped, and Grizzly was relatively good about they got it shipped right out. There's a couple of things that were a little bit irritating to me with their customer service, but I kind of understand it, and it's not a real big deal. Um, when this was shipped, it made it to Lexington, Kentucky that next day, and it was delayed there a day. So I would kind of suspect when they were transferring it between trucks why somebody flung it from one truck to the other and the end came out. So they set it aside, and they probably taped it up then, is my guess. So, you know, that's probably what it is. Would I buy this again knowing what I know now? Probably not under the same conditions. If I was standing in the Bellingham store, or for some reason the Missouri store, I was shopping for a rotary table and I saw this, I might buy it again. I probably would buy it again. But if I was having it shipped, I would not. While UPS damaged it, I feel it's also part of Grizzly's fault too, because it's not packed well enough to make that trip once it makes it to a truck. You know, if you've got 100 of these stacked on a pallet and they're shrink wrapped together coming from overseas, and they do a boat ride where they're all together and everything, why, they survive that fine. Like I say, probably if they were shipped out of Bellingham, it probably would have made it to, you know, I'm 200 miles away, or about 200 miles. It probably would have traveled about 400 before it got to me, but nonetheless, it probably would have made it in satisfactory condition. Where it's shipped from clear across the United States, it's not making the trip. You know, it's not packaged well enough to do that. So if it would have been a one-time deal, like when I got the first one, I blamed it on UPS. This one having the exact same damage to it, being opened exactly the same way, I feel that Grizzly has some responsibility there. So I've got it, I'm keeping it, you know, I'm going to rework it, and we'll go over several things about it here in a minute, but I wanted to make that clear about the shipping. If I was having it shipped across the country or shipped from basically any place, I wouldn't buy it. You know, maybe the other rotary tables they offer, the 6 inches, things like that, maybe they are perfectly acceptable the way they're packed. Maybe they're packed a little bit differently. Maybe they take up a little more space in the box so it can't bang around as much, whatever the case may be. But this particular rotary table, in this way they've got it packed and everything, if it's being shipped, I wouldn't buy it. I think any value you had there, you're losing out on. Now, bear in mind that my excitement over getting a new tool or a new toy for in the shop was gone after about the first 2 or 3 emails back and forth with their customer service. Now, customer service, they were very good. They, you know, the guy apologized and you know, looked it up right then, made a new number for, you know, for the damage and everything. And I'd taken pictures of it, of course, and he said, go ahead and send those pictures to, and their email for their damage department is damages or damage at grizzly.com. So their products may have a few issues that, you know, we see it pop up more than we would maybe like to see. So anyway, I pulled my pictures, just added them onto the email. They were added as an attachment. I emailed it off. That was on Thursday when I initially received the first one. Friday afternoon, I get an email back from their damage department, very nice, saying we're sorry you had this problem and everything, and evidently they're working off an email template, because every successive email back from them after that said, we're very sorry for this, you know, you're very important to us, and all that stuff, which the first time or even 2 was nice. After the 3rd or 4th time, it's, you know, you're getting an email template that started out that way, so there's no real personal service in that respect. So anyway, that's not a big deal. I mean, it was still being taken care of at that point in time. Got the email back Friday saying, we received your email, we're sorry for all of this. Unfortunately, we can't open any attachments for fear of viruses. So if you would take your emails or take your pictures and put them in the body of the email. So just be aware of that. If you've got to send anything back to Grizzly, don't try and add it as an attachment, because they're going to bounce it. So that was Friday. So then, of course, nothing's happening until the following Monday. So I sent pictures back on Friday. Monday, I hear back from them saying, we're sorry you had this problem, and you know, we want to get it taken care of. We're going to have our technicians review your pictures, and we'll be back to you in a day or 2. So I think they did get back to me on Tuesday, and I thought that I'd made it very clear, and I told them that they could watch my initial review on my YouTube channel too, and showed that in there, so there wasn't any attachment or anything. They could just go to that link if they wanted to, or go to that site and they could watch the initial unboxing video of it. So I thought it was fairly clear through our earlier interactions that what I had was not acceptable. And I was open, and I didn't say it, but I was open either to an exchange, or if they wanted to credit me for future purchase, whatever the case may be, you know, because they're going to have to pay to have it shipped back, and they're going to have the hassle and the time and the manpower to resolve that issue with UPS too, plus the extra shipping costs and all of that. So I was open to basically either of those options. And after they'd reviewed it and said, you know, yes, there's damage to it and everything, it wasn't, we're going to send you a replacement, or we're going, you know, what can we do to make this right? It's, what do you want to do? So I felt like my option was I either kept what I had after all this hassle, or else I just shipped it back. So I said, well, it was unacceptable the way it was, so we'd ship it back. So there was an immediately, they said they would issue a new one, which they started processing a new order, and said that there'd be a call tag out for the, you know, and UPS would pick up the old one to repackage it. So I spent my time and tape and effort boxing it all back up, taping it all up and everything, and sent it back off to UPS. And they picked it up, I think, Tuesday probably. So then I'm waiting. So originally it was supposed to be a Monday delivery. Well, then since it got tied up in Lexington, Kentucky with UPS, why, then it was Tuesday. So it did show up yesterday. So now that I've rambled on this long, and this is basically an unedited thing, I'm just going to do it, show it to you, and see what we got. Now, interestingly enough, in the mail, and I think I did request one, why, yesterday, I got the new Grizzly catalog. So there we go, 2021. Nice shiny new one. And that would be the rotary table right there. So that's what we got. So when we look at all the stuff that goes along with it, the box was like that. Now this box, it had the tempered hardboard, or the hardboard out of the end too when it blew out. It did actually have a piece of foam rubber stuffed in there. So that was in there. Now packaging, well, let's do it a package at a time here. Here's our rotary table. You know, we mainly got just one big hunk out. There's a little bit scuffed on the ears of the hold down, but yeah, there's our main complaint. It's a big quarter-sized hunk of something. Now I don't know, and I haven't played with this that much. We'll look at it a little bit closer. This one's got a lot of backlash, which backlash is adjustable, and it will play with adjustments and stuff. And I'm going to clean all this up, and once I clean it up, we're going to completely disassemble it. We've got a little bit of a wobble in our hand wheel. So I'm not sure if that's just a manufacturing problem, or if we bent it a little bit when we threw it down the stairs off the dock, whatever the case may be. So I'll have to investigate that. There may be some follow-up on that. I'd see a little more scuffing on the hand wheel, but it's nothing like the other one. You know, it just made one bounce on the ground apparently. So that was that. It was wrapped in plastic, so it's got the normal wear where it, you know, where it's worn against the plastic riding on the boat. The manual, and this is the way it came out. You know, we're kind of dog-eared where they shoved the lid back in, scuffed up here where it's skidded along the pavement. But anyway, neither here nor there. That's not that big a deal. And all of this stuff, of course, the bigger components were wrapped in plastic. The tailstocks here, it doesn't seem to have any damage on it at all. There's a little bit of paint chip there, but it was still in its box. The box, you know, we've beat them up, both sides and everything, and it was that kind of cattywampus down in the bottom of the box. But tailstock was in it, contents were intact. You know, I've got no complaint there. That's normal wear and tear. One little box that didn't really have any damage at all, that had the clamping kit in it. So it's still all sealed, no complaints there, it'll be fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's the handle for the table itself. Now one thing I did notice on this table before I forget about it, and this is more a quality control thing or a consistency quality control. The engraving on this is both on the edge of the table and the engravings here are quite a bit deeper than on the other one. You know, there's no problem with them, but I do notice quite a difference. I don't know how much I really see on the table itself, but on the hand wheel and on the graduations here, they're engraved quite a bit deeper than the original one was. And it's got almost a little bit of a burr left on it. You know, it's not really objectionable. It's not enough to where it's an issue at all, but it is different. So going to be some changes there from it. And this one, the plating on the handle is a little bit shinier. The other one was a little more dull. There again, neither here nor there, just kind of something I notice on quality control. And we'll look at it more in depth when I get inside. The index plates and knobs and sector arms and everything are still intact. Now the box they came in has been slightly abused there along the way, but there again, the contents are okay in it. Hold down bolts there, the bag's a little bit torn, and they were floating loose. They were floating loose in the other box too, so they were just kind of dropped in the main box. Not a big deal. Got the T-handle for the chuck, and then the chuck itself is the only other thing. Now, this one I notice is exceptionally dirty, which the other one was too, but there's a lot of yuck. I don't know how well that shows up along there. It does along the edge. It's scuffed up along the edge, which the other one was too. Now this one isn't scuffed nearly as bad as the original one was, but it's been abused a little bit. So, and I don't know the complaints that there were with the other ones, and this is wrapped up a little bit differently than the first one was, which, you know, may have been wrapped by somebody else, may have been a little bit different packaging or whatever the case may be. The complaints about these chucks were they were very tight. Now the last one wasn't too awful bad. So let's just quickly see what the action is on this one. Like I say, we'll go over this a little bit more in depth once we get that far. You know, once I start disassembling it and putting it together and everything. Yeah, this one's. The other one was far smoother than this. That's ugly. Once it's cleaned up, it'll probably be fine. But yeah, where it had to be shipped, I'm not impressed. You know, they didn't do a good job. So anyway, under these conditions, I would not buy this. You know, I'm kind of a Grizzly fan. I think they normally do a good job. This time, I think they've really kind of screwed the pooch on this one. So anyway, we'll get it. I'll start disassembling it. Maybe I'll film part of that. Maybe I won't. I'm just going to completely disassemble it. We'll run it through the solvent tank. We just set up new solvent and everything. One other thing that I noticed, and I got to compare these, you know, I looked the other one over pretty well. And one of the things that stood out to me, and I'm curious how it is on this, is the sector arms were burred up where they met, and they were burred up pretty bad. Looking at these index plates, yeah, I don't see any problems. These are well protected in oil, and they're in real good shape there. I've got no complaints at all with them. But I'm curious about these sector arms. And there again, that's what I refer to when I consider them kind of a kit, because they need to be deburred. They need to be fitted a little bit a lot of times. We got a roll pin in there, but something was evidently tight fitting together. It's kind of boogered up there on the, I think there you can see it right on the end, where it's kind of been peened over, I guess, to make it fit. We'll have to look at all that good stuff, see what it does. Now these sector arms, okay, well, no, we haven't changed anything yet. There's the way they match in the middle. Now the other one was burred real bad on these two halves, and it's pretty rough. Yeah, we've got quite a burr here. They were, and they've been filed down on this one. On the other one, they were rolled out right on this edge, so they'd kind of puckered out to the center. Those will have to be cleaned up, but that's not a big deal. That's part of having the kit, you know. Anyway, hopefully you find that a little bit interesting. And comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.